Hello YouTube, I'm Aaron Losi. This is Rudy Martinez from Texas Tires and Parts. Yeah, the Texas is just logo. Anyways, he owns a shop and I wanted to chat with him about why most drift shops fail. It is incredibly difficult to have a drift shop that lasts, a decade, half a decade, 2 years. Typically somebody will open a business, they'll run themselves into the ground financially, and they'll run a shop for maybe 1 to 2 years because that's how long it takes for the projects to, run the course and everything. And for everyone to go broke, involve the customers, the person, to actually get the cars on track or maybe get them close to track where the cars are garbage. And it's just such a difficult proposition. And I'm gonna lay it out a tiny bit and then he can talk about it. You have the problem, the shop is expensive to run. It's difficult to run. The shop builder or owner or car person needs to have a lot of experience with drift cars. He needs to know what works, what doesn't work. He needs to experience all the terrible parts of it. Like when we get into drifting a long time ago, people would be like, oh, put a 35R on the SR. It's gonna have less back pressure, make more efficient boost, blah, 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 do this and that. And then someone would build it and you'd go drive it and you're like, that is the most garbage thing on earth. That's completely undrivable. It breaks itself and it makes somebody miserable. But in the beginning phase of everything, the person's like, I'm gonna do it right. I'm gonna buy the best parts. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And they have no experience, they don't know the actual outcome. And that would stack upon itself and just people would spend so much money. So anyways, that would always lead to a giant disaster. And what a shop probably needs to do is effectively spend the customer's money to present them with a finished product that they can deal with, that doesn't cause too much. Like, you don't want to create a car that takes 4 people to run it whenever the person goes out there. You need to know what the customer's expectations are, what the customer's limitations are financially, and also what they can operate. You need to understand the finished project, not just from like the minute it rolls out the shop, but for the next however many years of it existing. You need to know how it's going to break, how it's going to last, how joyful it's going to be. Is the person going to die inside because he's overweight and it's 150 degrees where he operates the car? You need to know all of these things. You need to know if a car is going to be incredibly uncomfortable, because I'm sure you go out and you see all these people in super gangster lean back chairs where they can't reach pedals and they do stuff. Everybody builds their first car wrong.
Some people don't even realize that their center of the seat is offset from their center of the steering wheel. And you get in it and you're just like, and they're like, oh, I had no idea.
Okay, now hopefully I did all the talking I'm going to do in this episode, and it's all going to be Rudy now, and he's going to carry this.
Right.
So I want you to just tell me about your experiences of why you think drift shops fail, why yours has succeeded, the difficult parts that you've had in your drift shop, where you make money, how things work, what you're going to do over the next 5 years, what you've deleted, all those types of things. Because I think the average consumer of like a YouTube video is on the path of like, if there's 10,000 views or 100,000 a YouTube video for drifting, there's no way that many people have ever been on track. There's no way more than just a few hundred people that watch a popular video on YouTube have any real experience in a car. So I want to address those type of people, not just the people that have tons of experience. Okay,
I'm ready.
Now it's your turn to come on, go.
Okay, so I think the first thing is, one, like now that we are aged a little bit, is not letting the customer pick exactly what they want, because when they pick what they want versus what they know works, you kind of run into issues, and those issues get put on the employees here. And I think that was probably one of our things in the beginning. And then same thing with other drift shops is when they take in cars and they're not capable of finishing out those cars, they kind of fold in, especially when they take in like 6 or 10 at a time. Like, we have a strict rule where we only do 3 cars at a time, and those 3 cars have to get done. So like, we had a JZX leave today and he wants to do a bunch of work at one time. I'm like, okay, let's install this hydro e-brake, and then when you come back, we can do the turbo upgrade. But I'm not going to do it all at once. We're going to do one thing at a time.
You can't handle a hydro handbrake and something else at the same time?
Well, it doesn't stop there.
Making fun of you.
Yeah. So you kind of.
That's my job.
You honestly, the whole thing about drifting and customers is you have to slow them down from themselves, because they're ready to go all in, but they don't know exactly what it takes for the maintenance. One of the things is our good friend Joseph from Augment Racing. I built him that 350Z for that one drift week, and I said, we don't need to LS swap it. Now he's 6 LS cars in, and he realized that he needs to, sell some of the cars, because they're all pro-built chassis now. Just because you have the money to do something doesn't necessarily mean that it's smart to do it, because the maintenance and can take away the fun, and then honestly you won't want to do it anymore. So that's kind of my whole thing, is experience over money, or like the overall experience that you have with your drift car, and like going to a drift track and having to work on it, having to nut and bolt it, having to, because I've worked on those race teams, having to oil change fluids or having to ice down, that's not a good idea. So anyone that tries to get into drifting and they're ready to LS swap it or JZ swap it, I'm like, not going to happen. Or it's not going to happen to an extent to, like I might put a JZ like we did in this BMW, but like it's not going to make over 300 horse. It's just going to be something plain Jane, so you can't hurt it, and then you're not screaming at me at the track, because I want to go have fun and stuff too. So a lot of the drifting stuff is, just stopping the customers from hurting themselves, and then trying to not draw up projects long enough. That's one of the main things that I learned, because you can give a $2,000 or $3,000 bill, but when you do one thing in one shot and you give them like a $10,000 or $12,000 bill, they're like, oh, that's a lot of money. But then when you do like, okay, it was here for 2 months, then it's not a lot of money. So that's why I do the rotation. Every 3 weeks we have a rotation of different customers. So you might see the same cars over and over again, but they're getting a different list of mods, because they all have money essentially.
So I've got something to go back to your first thing. You said you only have 3 cars in here at a time. You have this crazy $150,000 bill for just the parts on this car, not labor. This is probably a $250,000 build. Doesn't sound like you do that for customers. You would only do that for yourself, and all the customers have very small things that you nickel and dime them $2,000 at a time.
Well, my whole thing is reliability. It's different when I'm gonna fuck it up and work on it myself out at the track, but I think because the majority of our customers are either from IAS or Lone Star Drift, like if their car breaks at the track and I did all the work, then I'm the one that has to fix it. So I can only limit that to, how much work do I want to do at the track. So I'd rather just them keep with something basic.
So your cars aren't very basic though. You have pretty advanced cars. Your S13 this and the VR30 G35.
Yeah.
So you don't practice what you preach necessarily. You build whatever you want for yourself, and then all your customers are going to be basically very basic cars. Hopefully stock turbos on a JZ or a VQ engine car.
I think we're also moving from the time period of where the customers are getting better, not necessarily like financially. Like everyone used to be a blue collar, work on their own car mechanically, and they would bring it to me after they messed it up. Right now I have a lot of white collar people, and we do the whole process from start to finish, and then they can go out to the track and just drive it. And that's, I think, where drifting is going. And so that kind of took a long time to get there as well, because usually my whole first beginning stages were terrible cars that all had to be sorted through. And we're still kind of doing that now, because a lot of people will buy the 240s and then the 350Zs and do terrible things to them, and then you spend more time fixing them. Like the WiseFab stuff, like if you bring it here, or if you install it right out of the box and you don't mess with anything, it's a lot cheaper than if you move every single time. It can go from a $300 alignment to like a $1,200 alignment. I see that over and over and over.
Wow. He has a big fancy alignment rack here, and he does a lot of alignments on drift cars and drag cars and stuff, right?
Yeah. So a lot of people that do bring their cars here, pretty much every car outside is essentially, there's probably 6 cars outside, and they're all self-inflicted pain. So
all cars are.
That's true, but that's how I guess people bring their cars to a drift shop, is because they know that they're gonna sort it out. But I think we're getting over that phase now, where I'm actually starting from start to finish. Oh, you want to do something? Let's do something clean slate. Let's find a car. Let's build it. Let's do it.
So I have an interesting thought. It used to be everybody took cars to drift shops for full builds, and anything simple they would do themselves. And even up to a point, they would work on it, and then when they lost their ability to continue with the project because it got over their head, they would take it to a shop. But that's not the kind of work you do. You don't take in the SR cars that make 500 horsepower that need sorting with dyno time and tuning and a bigger engine package or something. Like, you're taking in very basic stuff that allows you to have a $2,000 bill for like just a couple small things, like a hydro install and alignment, a couple things, instead of trying to do, you know, $10,000 to just sort out an SR car with a dyno and a turbo setup and, you know, tune and wiring and all that crap that's going to blow up. So that's interesting. It sounds like
I don't want to give anyone a car that they don't have the mechanical abilities to, or the wallet to cover. So we have Waleed, and man, every time I hand him his JZX 190 back, and he just like floors it out of here, it hurts me every time. It's like not even warm. But he already knows, like, when he messes it up, that he's gonna pay, and he's completely okay. So I do have customers like that.
But going back, what's your shop rate?
$130 an hour.
Okay, so you charge $130 an hour. For you to take an SR customer, I don't want to pick on SR customers, but anybody with like a problem child car with wiring that's a disaster because it was done poorly for very cheap and all that stuff, you're never going to get a customer necessarily to put 40 hours of labor to sort out a poorly built turbo car that isn't worth $4,000 almost from the start. But you can charge those type of prices and get it and maintain your own shop, because this video is about talking about how shops fail. You can get your $130 an hour and get yourself paid on a very small project that's easy to complete, that doesn't have a lot of like ability to screw up. You're not going to screw up a small project, whereas if you build this for a customer, you could screw yourself or the customer super easily, because you could be off on billing hours by 1,000 hours by the time you're done.
So that's the thing, is like, you don't want to. I've already been there, so it's like I've already taken on projects way too big and completed them all, but like, you lose so much time that sometimes even the ones that we do, like, you're just like, because we clock in and we use QuickBooks and everything, and you clock in and you clock out on some of those cars, you're just like, how did I spend 50 hours plugging holes in a chassis just to not let smoke come in?
God, and then there's $6,000 into a bill on that.
Because each one of these holes is like, there's over 100 holes in this thing, and you got to cover, like, do a firewall, and that's the same thing when building engine harnesses and stuff like that, is like, you lose so much time, and you're just like, all right, I know I spent 40, how about I just put 30? And it's still like, how did you spend 30 hours building stuff? But that's what it takes.
But then that screws you in
it
the
does.
customer a little bit, because you probably never should have taken on the project of filling holes on a G35. Because remember, as a running car, the car would be worth $1,000, or, you know, whatever it is. But like he was talking about this.
That's one of my things. Just because you're capable of doing something doesn't mean you should do it. Just like I have a VR30 car. You know, the whole internet's hit me up for that, but
you can't do it. So jumping over to, let's say, it sounds like you specialize in VQs, which you never have to pull out or do anything with. It's just an engine that exists in a car, not this one, but it did, in a car, and you service all the items around it. And it sounds like you do JZs and customer cars. How do you deal with, like, let's say a JZ? They're all 25 years old now for the most part. Are you getting junkyard engines for people and putting those in and crossing your fingers and hoping everything's good? And if it's bad, do you eat the labor? You know what I'm saying? Like,
there's the thing now, like, taking in JZ cars is like, I make sure that the customer has an understanding that we're going to spend more money than what the car is worth, no matter what car it is. And it's going to be how I want it to be. Usually it's either an ECU Masters or a Link ECU. I'm not using your stock computer. We're going to build a new harness, because all these harnesses are 20, 30 years old. So we're going to build something from scratch. And, you know, we're probably going to get rid of a lot of stuff and just make it more simple. And then you can't take on projects that, like, we can't really take on LS projects, because, like, we don't have the...
Too complicated for you, I get it.
No, it's not the... But, like, you run into so many problems that can hold up something. Like, if you knew the difference between 1J VVTi intakes and 1J just non-VVTi intakes, and the fuel rails have different, and same thing with the 2Js, like, there's so many small factors of which parts cross over and which parts don't. If you don't have the parts bins like we do behind us filled with this stuff, it can become
a nightmare.
Yeah. So, like, that's why I just stick to what you really, really know. and that's how you.
So you wouldn't work on a rotary, or you wouldn't work on some crazy thing that you don't have experience with.
I would maintenance it, and sure, I would replace one, but I'm not going to go do a swap in another one. Like if an RX-7 came in here, I'd probably take a look at it because I'm educated. But does it if I decide at some point, and that's one of the things you got to learn is like cutting your losses. Like don't spend more time needed. One, you don't want to charge money for learning on a customer's car, so that's why we have these wild cars. You know, some things are new, like ECUs and stuff, but you want to be able to give them something quality back. But if it's like an RX-7, sure, I'll look at it and I'll make my decision depending on how catastrophic it is.
So in Houston specifically, how many drift shops have you seen come and go, and how many exist today?
I don't know if is there any drift shops. I don't think there is any. I remember at one time there's 3 or 4.
I think Stephen Bales had one. 786
Rent
motor
Spec had one, or Stratusworks had.
Status Auto Works.
Status Auto Works, yeah. And yeah, they all do different things now. So I think finding your niche and then sticking with that.
So some of them went to wraps or other things that they could handle.
Simple things, yeah.
Can't blow up a car with a wrap, hopefully. I mean, you could.
Yeah.
So you're literally the only one standing in a metropolis that's like, I think Houston's one of the top cities in the country for both size and finances. It's probably in the top 3 for both.
So really,
and they can't support more than one drift shop?
Really, I don't know of any drift shops throughout the United States that are just really strictly, like if you go outside, there's a bunch of drift cars waiting to come in.
Well, there are drift shops across the United States. There's MA Motorsports. There's lots of places.
Are they a drift shop or are they more of a fabrication shop? I've never been there, so I don't know.
MA Motorsports builds drift cars.
They're almost a race car shop at this point.
Yeah, they might be like a full race car shop.
I know, but you could send them a Formula D build and they can spit it out.
Yeah.
My old S15 is there from Mike Powers.
Sometimes, honestly, I don't know what we do here. Like, we're called Texas Tires and Parts, and we'll go weeks without doing a tire. And then sometimes days without doing an alignment. And then next thing you know, there's nothing but a bunch of crappy 240s here getting alignments. And then next thing, it's a bunch of Lamborghinis.
Yeah.
So
jumping back to why the shops failed in Houston specifically, because you're around them, was it incompetence? Was it the customers? Was it like the cars all blew up? They were building the wrong type of car? What specifically took a bunch of these shops down?
I think the one thing that kills most shops is being friends with everyone. Friends is the number one killer, because like I don't have the same friends that I came in with, and that might be very upfront, but like when I started charging, those friends went away. And then and then the ones that are really your friends are the ones that pay full price, like
Yeah.
Like it's just like that'll blow your mind.
Well,
like the
it's
people
that
that
and also taking on too much scope that they have no idea.
Taking on too much, man. A lot of people aren't willing to put in the pain and suffering of like figuring stuff out, so they just want to put something on. And like the rule around here is, because I have 3 employees, is we're never allowed to rush, and we're not allowed anyone to rush us, because everyone wants their stuff now. But I just tell them I'm not going to do it. So I think that's probably one of the biggest factors. And then not taking too long on the projects, because people's circumstances, especially financially, will change within a month or 2 to where they don't have any money. So you just want to do the project as not quickly as possible, but as efficiently as possible.
Like that took you 6 years. Imagine having a customer having the same job, living in the same place with the same woman attached to him that hasn't killed the project and everything else. So realistically, really short projects, not too big, within your own wheelhouse of what you can complete. Don't work on your friend's stuff for cheap. What other things can we learn from you today?
I think...
what are your biggest failures? What almost put you out of business?
Actually, I've been so cautious before this. I think I've done okay as far as... Because I've worked in the automotive world for quite a few years, and this was just a side thing. So I don't think anyone ever leaves here unhappy, but I think most of the stuff that I've done...
Except you.
Yeah, I think no, and that's true. Is like I will put myself through more pain than like what the customer will even realize. Like we did a hydro setup, and it was unorthodox with the line lock, something that we didn't normally do, and we had a problem where the brakes wouldn't bleed, and then we've done hundreds of hydro installs, and the plunger would go back, overextending back the opposite way because I think the cap on the hydro. So like being able to diagnose stuff like that, I probably spent way more hours than I had charged.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of run into things all the time. So
I think all shops have that problem.
yeah,
And that's the reason you charge $130 an hour, so that you can recover from something. Because
Yeah.
it probably isn't always necessary for you to actually charge $130 an hour to make your profit and everything else, but
Yeah.
it is for you to survive long term.
we do things differently around here where like we don't give full estimates, and I think that's also a big killer. Is like someone's like, oh, 10 grand, I'll put that motor in, where that never works out. So what I do is my employees have to clock in and clock out per job, and if they're going to switch another job, they have to stop what they're doing, clock in and clock out, and go, and they have to put in all these notes, whether they, I took off the water pump, cleaned the water pump, put a new gasket on the water pump, put it back on. And so it's not like I'm like, oh yeah, give me $3 grand and I'll do this engine build or whatever it is. So I think that, so we're not charging astronomical fees. I actually think it should be higher. I just don't think the customer base is there yet.
Now, in the next 5 years, like we saw the proliferation of 350Zs and VQ cars come up heavily. Looks like you're doing a lot of JZ stuff lately. What is going to carry you forward for the next 5 years? Are there going to be enough junkyard JZs at a low enough price that aren't so old and stuff that you can maintain a business like that? Are you going to go get short blocks from Toyota directly and build engines? Like, what are you going to do?
I think we're going to an age as we're evolving, maybe doing JDM kind of classic restores with the 1Js and the 2J, JZX stuff. That seems to be really popular. So we might not even be doing like modifications. I'm not quite sure because like the business is ever evolving, but that seems to be really big right now is we're just putting JZs and stuff, and then we're making them really pretty and then doing all the maintenance. So I think OEM plus upgrades might be the future, where people might have the money, even though we are a drift shop technically right now, but sometimes, we are filled with a bunch of drift cars, especially in December. It changes through the months, honestly, what we kind of specialize in. But like right now, we're doing JDM restoring cars.
That's an interesting market because one, you've got people with more money. Two, the cars are probably hopefully in better condition and just getting restored. So you can like control the project. It doesn't get out of hand. You don't have a really heavy driver blowing the thing apart and like killing it.
Yeah.
And then everything probably fits, even though it's hard to work on because it's got AC lines and everything else. Race cars are probably easier to work on, but way harder in some ways because nothing was meant to be together, and you have to be willing to cut and
and essentially it's still getting the same stuff. Like even though like we're doing a JZX90 with a 1JZ that's getting pretty much all OEM stuff, we're still putting a Link ECU in it and stuff. Like I'll kind of avoid anything that's
Toyota capacitors.
Yeah, like I'll like if a 240 tries to drop off for diagnostics, I'm like, what ECU are you on? And if it's a modified ROM tune, I'm out. Like not because I can't fix it, but the amount of money that I'll have to charge to fix it.
Yeah, and it's a cheap customer and everything.
Yeah, like you already ended up here with your shitty KAT. Like I can't look at it for 6 hours and be like, oh, this was it.
Yeah.
Now,
moving forward, one thing that exists in road racing and stuff, but doesn't exist much in our world, is arrive and drive drivers that would like have this car here, a full race car. You maintain it, you transport it to the track, you charge them accordingly. They probably are willing to pay excellent prices because their time is worth a lot. They don't want to store the car, they don't want to do anything. If you had maybe 4 or 5 of those guys, that's all the business you would need as a race shop. Do you ever want to transform into something like that?
So we actually have that right now. It's a $300 subscription, as we call it. And so it comes
keep going.
It comes with an alignment.
Does it come with car storage inside?
No, it's only outside because we have to move cars out every day. I've even had to take my cars home now because we're moving. So it comes with an alignment once a month, and
I didn't know about this. This is a plug. Keep going.
And we do a nut and bolt check, and then up to 6 tires mounted and 1 oil change, not including the tires or the oil
Yeah,
consumables.
just labor.
Yeah, just the
that's
labor,
actually a good
and
deal.
you have to notify us 3 days in advance, and so we can wash your car and prep it and get it ready before the event.
This sounds amazing. If that came with indoor storage for like an extra $100, that would be amazing.
Yeah, we don't quite have the room for that.
No, but you could like hang cars from the
I'm already
ceiling.
stacking cars. I'm already going to stack more cars.
Yeah.
I think once we get the
$300 though isn't enough. You would need a business where like you make real money.
Yeah. Well,
Taking the car to the
way
track,
I see it,
sitting with it for 14 hours a weekend.
yeah. So I did the math on it, and so if you were to pay for these services and you did 8 drift events a year and you got that every single time, I think it came out to like $4,600 or something like that. I can't remember exactly. It was like $1,000 savings, like if you just paid the $300 subscription. It was like,
And I'm plugging his business.
but you know, it all
I've
goes
never
to
heard
the
of anything like that. It's kind of interesting.
yeah. So it all goes to the person too. Oh, and I also have media tied up in that too. Like, if my media guy's there, we do that per event too. Like, if you come in for the first like within that 2 weeks, and then we see you, I pay my media guy to take photos of your car.
Cool.
But that's part of the subscription too.
Okay.
So that just makes things easier though. Like, 'cause if you're the only one touching it, it makes things a lot easier. When
Yeah.
everyone else tries to touch that shit, they mess it up.
So you think that your drift shop is financially fine and it's going to march into the future, and you don't see a big problem with it? You've been operating for 6 years. You pay for your house, your truck, your race cars. You don't have a dad financing all this stuff. You can finance hundreds of thousands of dollars of G35s.
I'm really cheap
off of
though.
this business. Man, $130 an hour labor rate gets someone hundreds of thousands of dollars of G35s.
I live very frugal. I eat once a day.
Saying the guy with hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, because I have
You know,
an
if you just
addiction.
you could just eat multiple times a day and not have hundreds of thousands of dollars of G35s.
I don't do anything but this. I'm here when everyone's at home asleep.
He's gonna have like on his tombstone, like he died poor but had a sick G35.
Oh yeah. I have plans for that. I want to take all 3 of my cars and crush them while I'm duct taped to the steering wheel, so no one can have them, and then throw me in the ground.
Okay.
That's it.
Is there anything else to talk about on this subject? I think we're done.
No, I think that was pretty much it.
like
Probably parts, like picking the right parts. Not every company has the same quality of parts per vehicle. So there might be one time that I might actually pick GK Tech versus Part Shop Max, or even Godspeed, for if you're talking about like FRS rear control arms, you know. So not all companies are created equally, and having the experience and you know what I hate the most is like the amount of angle kits for 350Zs, and there's like 2 good ones, but then like everyone wants to argue with
Which
you.
ones are they?
It's either the Part Shop Max, and then of course Wisefab everything. You know, the rest of the stuff I could care less.
Something to say about that real quickly is it is worth it to have, like, say you could go to a shop and you buy like Wisefab or Parts Back powered by Max or whatever it's called, Part Shop Max. The first time you buy your angle kit and like you set your car up, you're gonna make a lot of mistakes. It's gonna be set up terribly. It's probably gonna drive poorly. You're gonna buy version 1 of the kit that they have, or like a used version, and then you're gonna need to get like all the updated parts because it breaks. Because all these angle kit companies learn over time, and then you're going to buy another version, and you're going to spend a ton of money. And just like when we were on turbo car, well, you're still on turbo cars, sorry. You're going to do a turbo setup, and you're going to be like, I don't like that turbo setup. I need to do a bigger turbo setup. I don't like that fuel system setup. You keep rebuying parts. Hopefully, when you go to a shop like him or someone else,
I've already made those mistakes.
right? And you can jump to the front of the line of knowledge and get stuff.
Yeah.
I want to tell you very clearly and concisely, all your friends are fucking morons. They have no idea what they're talking about. Unless they're like FD drivers and of that caliber, something like that, and even then maybe they're still morons. They do not know. They haven't experienced all the different angle kits, all the different engine parts, all the different engine types. Everyone in the drift community, including myself, is an idiot. You have to be really careful about how you listen, like who you listen to. And the only way to really get past that problem is if you're a customer. I'm not telling you to go to Rudy. I'm telling you to go to like your local shop, or whoever is going to work on your car, yourself, or whoever is going to help you pick parts and choose it. Go ride in their car. Go ride in their car for multiple weekends. See how it handles. Maybe you tip them a bunch of money and you get to drive it. You want to experience that full build with all the parts and everything else on someone else's dime, because you could spend an astronomical amount of money sampling and changing parts out. It is a complete effing disaster to learn off the back of like yourself when you could go off Rudy or someone else. And then that's another problem is if you want to say experience Jay-Z stuff, you need to go to someone specifically known and good at Jay-Z stuff and that has it. And like, you know, they have multiple cars like that have been running for years and years, and that you drive it and all this stuff and you experience that. Don't go to him for V8 stuff. Don't go to him for rotary stuff. Don't go to him for something else. You go to a very specific person that can, you can get all the information out of them and skip the line of learning.
And they also have to kind of be in the field of like understanding of like, not every LS shop's gonna understand like drifting and like.
Oh yeah, no, I also mean it needs to be, when I said go ride in the car, it has to be from like, you don't go to Texas Speed necessarily. You go to someone that has a drift car that knows what they're doing and built into all this stuff and experience it through that. Because oftentimes, like, you remember being in drifting 10 years ago, somebody'd have a 1JZ with a Precision 6262 on it, and everything sounds great on their mods list. They tell you how great it is. You go drive it, and they literally can't do a donut on this car because it's so laggy. How many times has that happened to you? Like
I've had my own. That car's probably had 5 different size turbos, just finding what it likes, you know.
Oh, it's also like that competing, by the way. We compete against each other and other people. You'll go look at people's cars and you're like, that's so bad, I don't know how you're driving that, or like competing. Like a lot of the time, and it doesn't need to be an expensive amount of parts or anything else. Like just all the parts functioning really well, put together well, properly sized stuff, everything else gearing.
I think that's probably one of the biggest things. If you're going to choose a drift shop, make sure they're out there. Make sure they're actually doing the thing besides selling you on the thing. And the nicest person to you, like as a business owner, is probably trying to get your money more than actually trying to do actual business and make sure that you have a good time. Remember, the meanest guy in the room doesn't necessarily that means
he's the one that learned all the awful lessons.
But it means that he doesn't want like the worst for you. It's just like he ended up there for a reason, and I just feel like
me always yelling at everybody.
I just feel like the nicest person will just always take your money, and like they're kind of the evilest. But
I've been around so many people that did full builds and then hated it and left the sport. Okay, I think that's it. That's all we need to talk about. There's really not that many drift shops to go find. 10 years ago, it was actually easier to find drift shops because the people are more young and willing to work for nothing, and like were more excited, and all the life hadn't been beat out of them yet. But probably each major big city probably has one. Brandon Wicknick has one. You have one. Who else? I don't even know of any more in Texas hardly. Oh, your buddy Ben Lee has one, doesn't he?
Man, he just does remote tuning.
Oh, he doesn't even build stuff anymore?
No.
Okay. Who works? Oh, Connor.
Connor
out of Austin. Each major's like Texas city kind of has a shop. Who in the DFW area?
That's your area. I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to go other than just get tuned. But yeah, as you travel around the country, there are drift shops. Just know that like it's your responsibility as it's not like going to the BMW dealership and someone can take care of you. You might get totally screwed and like the whole project might not work out. And 95% of all drifters have to do all their own work anyways, and they only outsource the parts that they can't do, such as tuning or something else, but then you're relying on someone else.
I think if you're doing a drift build and you want to figure it out, I think setting up like what we do is we have consultations. Every 2 weeks I kind of go over it with the customer, and then before we even take in the car, I'll sit down in like 30 minutes and probe them to make sure that like this is for them. There's a lot of people that I told no to more than I've told yes.
So makes sense. We only have one customer where I do my stuff. It's just actually 2, me and then one other person, and we just tell everyone no. Because it's not worth working on anybody's stuff and taking the liability and like them being mad. Someone comes in and like, I want my welded diff done for $80. You're like, that's not going to go well for anybody. Just like leave us alone. All right. Thank you very much for your time. Paul, nice car. I hope it makes you happy. I hope it brings you extreme happiness.
I'm going to win.
No, you're not.
I'm going to Japan.
You think so?
Of course. I have to now.
Last year was a fluke. because I screwed up.
I'm not messing up.
No. It's going to be interesting who wins this year.
This car is predictable, stable, and fast.
I think you're going to be taken out by an electrical issue that you created by building the car,
I don't know. The car did pretty grip.
or because I unplugged something.
I'll pull Ryan literal.
All right.
I have another car.
That's, oh, God damn it. We all have two cars.